I never thought my marriage would unravel because of a piece of paper, but that's exactly how it started. My name is Harper, and until last Tuesday, I believed I had the kind of life people dream about: a loving husband, a charming townhouse in Boston's Back Bay, and a future full of promise. Amazing how quickly perfect can turn to poison. I was sorting through the mail that afternoon the way I always did when an ivory envelope caught my eye. Paper was expensive, the kind that feels like silk between your fingers. It was addressed to my husband, Ethan, but what made me pause was the handwriting, delicate cursive that looked more like artwork than letters. No return address. "Anything interesting?" Ethan called from his home office upstairs. The sound of his voice made me jump, and I nearly dropped the envelope. "Just bills and junk," I answered, hating how my voice wavered. In our 3 years of marriage, I'd never once opened his mail. But something about that envelope made my stomach twist. I heard his footsteps on the stairs and quickly shuffled the envelope to the bottom of the pile. Ethan appeared in the doorway, looking exactly like the successful businessman he was. Perfectly pressed shirt, designer watch, that confident smile that had first drawn me to him at a mutual friend's gallery opening. "You okay?" "You look pale," he said, crossing the room to kiss my forehead. "Just tired. The bookstore was crazy today." I forced a smile, acutely aware of the envelope burning a hole in the stack of mail. "How about pizza for dinner?" He checked his watch. "Can't tonight, sweetheart. Mother's hosting that charity thing at the house, remember? We need to be there by 7. Of course. Another Caldwell family obligation." I'd forgotten about Eleanor's latest fundraiser, probably because I'd been trying to. My mother-in-law had a way of making me feel like a charity case herself, even after 3 years. "Right," I said. "Let me just change in." "Actually, why don't you skip this one?" Ethan interrupted, loosening his tie. "You've been working so hard lately. Take the evening off, relax." Something in his tone made me look up sharply. He'd never suggested I skip a family event before. In fact, Eleanor would usually call personally to ensure my attendance. "Are you sure? Won't your mother mind?" "I'll handle mother." He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "It's just boring donor stuff anyway. You'd be miserable." I watched him head upstairs to change, that ivory envelope suddenly feeling like a lead weight in my hands. When I heard the shower start, I did something I never thought I would do. I opened it. Inside was a single card, the same creamy color as the envelope. The message was simple: same time, same place. "Don't keep me waiting again." My hand shook as I read it twice more. The implications were clear, but my brain refused to process them. This had to be a mistake, a mix-up, anything but what it seemed. I heard the shower stop and quickly resealed the envelope as best I could, slipping it back into the pile. When Ethan came down 20 minutes later in his best suit, I was sitting on the couch pretending to read. "Sure you don't mind?" he asked, grabbing his keys. "Go," I said, amazed at how steady my voice sounded. "Have fun." He kissed me goodbye, and I watched through the window as he pulled away in his Mercedes. As soon as his taillights disappeared around the corner, I grabbed my phone and pulled up my best friend Lily's number. My finger hovered over the call button. The thing about perfect lives is that they're like beautiful houses. Sometimes the prettiest facades hide the worst damage. I had a choice to make. I could pretend I never saw that note and keep living in my perfect house of cards, or I could start looking for cracks in the foundation. I pressed call. Lily's words from our late-night phone call still echoed in my head as I watched Ethan getting ready for work the next morning. "Trust your gut, Harper. When have your instincts ever been wrong?" Problem was, my gut was telling me things I didn't want to hear. "You're up early," Ethan commented, adjusting his tie in the hallway mirror. There was a slight edge to his voice, probably because I'd barely spoken 2 words to him since he'd returned from Eleanor's charity event last night. Couldn't sleep. I sipped my coffee, studying him over the rim of my mug. "How was the fundraiser?" "Same as always." Mother cornered every wealthy widow in Boston. He checked his phone, frowning. Speaking of mother, she wants us over for dinner tonight. My stomach clenched. Tonight? But it's Wednesday. We never do family dinner on Wednesdays. She's insisting. Says she has something important to discuss. He wouldn't meet my eyes, still staring at his phone. I told her we'd be there at 7. You didn't think to check with me first? He finally looked up, irritation flashing across his face. Since when do you have other plans on Wednesday nights? That's not the point, Ethan. I set my mug down harder than necessary. You've been making all these decisions lately without even asking me. The charity event last night, now this dinner. What's really bothering you, Harper? He stepped closer, his cologne, different from his usual, making me feel slightly nauseated. Because this doesn't feel like it's about dinner with Mother. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something in his expression shifted. I have to go. Early meeting. With whom? The words slipped out before I could stop them. He paused at the door, jaw tightening. Clients, Harper. That's what businessmen do. They meet with clients. After he left, I sat at our kitchen island, staring at nothing. 3 years ago, I'd fallen in love with Ethan's confidence, his easy charm. Now those same qualities felt like walls keeping me out. My phone lit up with a text from Eleanor. Darling, looking forward to dinner tonight? Wear something appropriate. I could practically hear her voice, dripping with polite disdain. In Eleanor's world, appropriate meant designer labels and family heirlooms, not the vintage dresses I loved from my bookstore salary days. I was about to reply when another text came through, this one from Ethan's Aunt Vivian. Coffee at Lardison in an hour? Need your book recommendations. Winky face. Vivian had always been different from the rest of the Caldwells. Where Eleanor wielded sophistication like a weapon, Vivian's warmth felt genuine. Plus, she was the family gossip. If anyone knew what was really going on, it would be her. Lardison was busy when I arrived, but I spotted Vivian immediately, her silver hair elegant against her coral blazer. She waved me over, 2 lattes already waiting. Harper, darling. She hugged me tight, then held me at arm's length. You look tired. Trouble sleeping. Just work stress, I lied, settling into my chair. She stirred her latte. Nothing to do with Eleanor's sudden Wednesday dinner plans? I tried to keep my face neutral. You know about that? Oh, I know many things. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. Like the fact that Celeste Moore is back in town. The name hit me like a slap. Celeste Moore, the gorgeous brunette who'd been at every Caldwell event until about 4 years ago, right before I met Ethan. She'd vanished so completely I'd almost forgotten about her. What does that have to do with anything? Vivian's eyes softened with something that looked dangerously like pity. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. But if I were you, I'd pay very close attention at dinner tonight. My phone buzzed, another text from Ethan. Might be late to Mother's. Meet you there. I showed Vivian the message. She read it, then reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Remember, Harper. In this family, nothing is ever quite what it seems. As I drove home, my mind raced. The ivory envelope. The mysterious meetings. Celeste's return. Felt like pieces of a puzzle were floating just out of reach, waiting to form a picture I wasn't sure I wanted to see. 7 o'clock couldn't come fast enough. Eleanor's dinner turned out to be anything but dinner. I sat alone at her mahogany dining table for 45 minutes before my mother-in-law finally emerged from her study. Perfectly coiffed and utterly unapologetic. Oh, darling. Has Ethan not arrived yet? She didn't wait for my answer, pouring herself a generous glass of wine. He just texted, caught up at the office. Such a dedicated worker, my son. I gripped my water glass tighter. You said this dinner was important, that you had something to discuss. Did I? Eleanor settled into her chair, studying me over the rim of her wine glass. Well, since you're here, we might as well talk about the Foundation's upcoming gala. The seating arrangements are proving quite challenging. My phone buzzed. Another text from Ethan. Sorry, sweetheart. Emergency meeting running late. Don't wait up. Something snapped inside me. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. I need to use the restroom. Instead of heading to the powder room downstairs, I climbed the familiar stairs to Ethan's old bedroom. Now his home office when he worked from his mother's house. The door was unlocked. They never expected me to snoop. I was the good daughter-in-law after all. The grateful scholarship girl who'd married up. I found what I was looking for in his suit jacket pocket, hung carelessly over his chair, a hotel key card for the Four Seasons. The same hotel mentioned in hushed conversations I'd pretended not to hear, in texts I'd glimpsed over his shoulder. My hands shook as I took a photo of the key card with my phone. As I slipped it back into his pocket, something else caught my eye, a receipt from the hotel's restaurant. 2 cocktails, dinner for 2, dated last night. During Eleanor's charity event. I heard footsteps on the stairs and quickly moved to the hallway bathroom, splashing cold water on my face. When I returned downstairs, Eleanor was on the phone. Yes, darling, she's still here, she was saying. No, I haven't, of course not. She noticed me and quickly ended the call. That was Ethan, she said smoothly. He's worried about you driving home alone so late. Shall I have Harrison bring the car around? I smiled, channeling every lesson in poise she'd ever given me. Actually, I think I'll wait for Ethan at the hotel. Her perfectly plucked eyebrows rose slightly. Hotel? The Four Seasons. That's where his emergency meeting is, right? The flash of panic in her eyes confirmed everything. 20 minutes later, I sat in my car across from the hotel, watching the entrance. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to drive away, pretend I'd never seen the key card or the receipt. Pretend I didn't know exactly what I'd find if I walked through those doors. Then I saw them. Ethan emerged first, his tie loosened, hair slightly mussed. She followed a minute later, Celeste Moore, exactly as Vivian had warned. She was even more beautiful than I remembered from those old family photos, her dark hair falling in perfect waves, her red dress a splash of color against the night. I watched them share a lingering kiss before parting ways. Watched my husband straighten his tie, check his reflection in a window, and head toward his car. Watched him become the man I thought I knew again. My phone buzzed with a text from him. Meeting running longer than expected. Staying at Mother's tonight. I started my car, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall. As I pulled away from the curb, I caught sight of Eleanor's driver, Harrison, parked discreetly across the street. Of course she'd had me followed. Of course she'd known. I drove straight to Lily's apartment, my mind already racing ahead to what came next. Because this wasn't just about Ethan's betrayal anymore. This was about 3 years of condescension, of subtle manipulations, of being made to feel grateful for crumbs of affection from the mighty Caldwell family. They thought I was weak, compliant, perfect, quiet wife who would accept whatever scraps of truth they deigned to throw her way. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Lily's apartment became my war room. After 3 sleepless nights of planning, I finally made the call I'd been dreading. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Harper Monroe? It's been 10 years? Hello, Jack. I twisted the wedding ring on my finger. I need your help. Jack Lawson had been the smartest kid in our high school until he dropped out senior year to help support his family. Now he was one of Boston's most discreet private investigators. And more importantly, he had no connections to the Caldwell family. Meet me at Cafe Luna in an hour, he said. And Harper? Bring cash. Cafe was nearly empty when I arrived. Jack hadn't changed much, still had that sharp look in his eyes that made you feel like he could see right through you. He listened without interrupting as I laid out everything. The letter, the hotel, Celeste. You sure you want to pull this thread? He asked when I finished. Rich families like the Caldwells, they've got ways of making problems disappear. I'm already disappearing, I said. I need to know the truth. He nodded, sliding a contract across the table. 3 days. $5,000. I'll find out what your husband's really up to. I handed him an envelope of cash, nearly my entire savings from before my marriage. There's something else. I need you to look into Celeste Moore's history with the family. She vanished 4 years ago, right before I met Ethan. I need to know why. Careful, Jack warned. Sometimes the truth's worse than not knowing. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed. Ethan, where are you? Mother's trying to reach you about the charity board meeting. I texted back that I was at work, the lie coming easily now. When I looked up, Jack was studying me. You're still living with him? If I leave now, I'll never know what really happened. I stood up. 3 days, Jack. That evening, I played my part perfectly. I sat through dinner with Ethan, nodding at his stories about work. I didn't flinch when he kissed my cheek, even though his cologne still carried traces of her perfume. But at midnight, my phone lit up with a text from Jack. Found something. Meeting tomorrow, same place, 8 a.m. Bring your laptop. Redditstory. When I arrived at the cafe the next morning, Jack was already there, looking grim. Before I show you this, he said, you need to understand something. This goes deeper than just an affair. He pulled out his tablet, showing me financial records, emails, photos. My hands shook as I scrolled through them. Celeste Moore didn't just disappear 4 years ago, Jack explained. She was paid to disappear. $2 million transferred from a Caldwell family trust. The same trust that's been bleeding money ever since. I don't understand. Look at the dates. He pointed to a series of transactions. The payments started again 3 months ago, right around the time she came back. My stomach lurched as the pieces started falling into place. She's blackmailing them. And your husband's been embezzling from his own family's foundation to pay her off. Jack leaned back. Question is, what does she know that's worth destroying a marriage over? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again. A text from Vivian. Need to see you. Urgent. Come to my house now. I showed Jack the message. He frowned. Be careful. The aunt might seem friendly, but she's still a Caldwell. I gathered my things, my mind racing. Send everything to my secure email. And Jack? Keep digging into what happened 4 years ago. Whatever Celeste is holding over them, that's when it started. As I drove to Vivian's, my hands gripped the steering wheel so tight they hurt. I'd wanted the truth, but now the truth felt like a weapon, one that could destroy not just my marriage, but the entire Caldwell dynasty. The question was, did I have the courage to pull the trigger? Vivian's house felt different in the rain. The Georgian mansion I'd visited countless times for family brunches now loomed like something from a Gothic novel. I almost turned around when I saw Eleanor's car in the circular drive. Inside, voices drifted from Vivian's study. I recognized Eleanor's precise tone, then Vivian's sharper reply. She deserves to know. Know what? I asked from the doorway. They turned, startled. Eleanor's face was ashen, missing its usual perfect makeup. Vivian sat behind her desk, holding what looked like an old photograph. Harper! Eleanor smoothed her skirt, recovering quickly. This is a private family matter. I'm family. The words tasted bitter. Or have you forgotten that while planning your son's secret meetings with Celeste? Eleanor's eyes widened. Vivian made a sound between a laugh and a sigh. Well, Vivian said, that saves us some explanation. She held out the photograph. Though not all of it. Picture was old, yellowed at the edges. In it, a younger Eleanor stood with a man who wasn't Ethan's father. They were both beaming at a baby in Eleanor's arms. That's not Richard, I said, meaning Ethan's father. Who? My first love, Eleanor said quietly. And Celeste's father. The room tilted. I gripped the back of a chair. Ethan doesn't know, Vivian added. Neither does Celeste. Their father died before either was born. My voice failed. Ethan and Celeste are half-siblings. Eleanor's voice cracked. I gave her up for adoption. It was what everyone expected back then. Unmarried mother, prominent family. My phone buzzed, another text from Jack. Found adoption records. Call immediately. Does Ethan know? I asked, already knowing the answer. About the money? The blackmail. Eleanor's face hardened. Blackmail? What are you talking about? I pulled up the financial records on my phone, hands shaking as I showed them. $2 million 4 years ago. More payments starting 3 months ago. Your son has been embezzling from the foundation to pay her off. Vivian stood so quickly her chair toppled. That's impossible. I handle all the foundation's accounts. Not the private trust, I said. The one Richard set up for Ethan before he died. Eleanor sank into a chair, her aristocratic posture crumbling. Oh God. She must have found out somehow. The adoption records. But Ethan's payments started recently, I pressed. Why would he? My phone buzzed again. This time it was Ethan. Where are you? We need to talk. I found something in your email. I shot through my veins. I'd left my laptop open at home, logged into the email where Jack had sent everything. I have to go. I turned, but Vivian caught my arm. Harper, wait. There's more you need to know about Celeste. About what really happened 4 years ago. Let her go, Eleanor said, her voice hollow. She's already decided what kind of story this is. Haven't you, dear? The wealthy family's dark secret. The faithless husband. De perfect revenge. I pulled away from Vivian's grip. You're wrong. This stopped being about revenge the moment I saw that photograph. Now it's about survival. Rain pounded against the windows as I drove home, my mind racing. Siblings. The word echoed like a curse. Did they know? Was that why Ethan had been paying her? Or was there something even darker hidden in the Caldwell family's perfect facade? My phone kept buzzing. Ethan. Jack. Vivian. I ignored them all. Because now I understood what I had to do. This wasn't just about exposing the truth anymore. It was about protecting Ethan, from Celeste, from his mother's lies, and maybe even from himself. But first, I had to get home before he finished reading those emails. The lights were on in our townhouse when I pulled up. Through the window, I could see Ethan pacing in his study, phone pressed to his ear. I took a deep breath and reached for the door handle. Time to find out what kind of story this really was. The front door felt heavier than usual as I pushed it open. Ethan stood in his study doorway, my laptop open on his desk behind him. His face held an expression I'd never seen before, something between rage and fear. Were you ever going to tell me? His voice was deadly quiet. About Celeste? I stepped inside, keeping my distance. Were you? He laughed, a harsh sound that made me flinch. About hiring a private investigator. About digging through my family's history. He stopped, running a hand through his hair. Do you have any idea what you've done? I know everything, Ethan. About the payments, about Eleanor, about... Stop. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbing my arm. You need to listen very carefully. Celeste is dangerous. The money wasn't for what you think. Let go of me. I twisted free, backing toward the door. She's your sister, Ethan. Your half-sister. All the color drained from his face. What? My phone buzzed, Jack again. I ignored it. Eleanor told me everything. The adoption, the cover-up. No. Finn shook his head. No, that's not. Celeste isn't my sister. She's Richard's daughter. The world tilted sideways. What? From his first marriage. The one nobody talks about. His laugh was bitter now. Mother didn't give her up, his first wife did. When she found out he was leaving her for Mother. My phone kept buzzing. Finally, I answered. Jack, not now. Harper, get out of there. Jack's voice was urgent. Celeste just left Eleanor's house. She had a gun. The front door burst open before I could respond. Celeste stood there, mascara running down her cheeks, looking nothing like the polished woman from the hotel. You couldn't leave it alone, could you? She wasn't looking at me, but at Ethan. Had to play the noble brother, protecting everyone's secrets. Celeste, don't, Ethan started. Shut up. She pulled the gun from her purse. Tell her. Tell your perfect little wife what really happened 4 years ago. My heart hammered against my ribs. Ethan, I found out what Father did, he said quietly. How he'd paid off Celeste's mother to disappear with her. How he'd erased all trace of his first family to marry Mother. I tried to make it right. By paying me off? Celeste's hand shook. By making me disappear just like he did? By protecting you, Ethan shouted. Richard was still alive then. If he'd known you'd discovered the truth. Det truth? She laughed wildly. The truth is, you're just like him. Throwing money at problems until they go away. Well, I won't go away this time. Everything happened at once. Celeste raised the gun. Ethan lunged forward. I screamed. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space. Ethan stumbled, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. Celeste stared at the gun like she'd never seen it before. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, die dient man. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have heard the shot. Celeste turned and ran, leaving the gun on the floor. I knelt beside Ethan, pressing my hands against his wound. Stay still. Help is coming. Harper. His voice was weak. I'm sorry. I thought I could fix everything without anyone getting hurt. Like father, like son, I said bitterly. He caught my wrist with his good hand. The money. It wasn't just payments. I was helping her build a new life away from all this. I couldn't tell anyone, not even you. If Mother had found out about Richard's first marriage while he was alive. The sirens grew closer. Through the window, I saw Eleanor's car screech to a halt outside. In the chaos that followed, paramedics, police, Eleanor's hysteria, I felt strangely calm. 'Cause I finally understood. There are no heroes or villains in family stories. Just people trying to protect the ones they love, usually in all the wrong ways. Question was, what would protecting myself look like now? The hospital waiting room felt like limbo. 3 hours had passed since they'd taken Ethan into surgery and still no word. Eleanor paced while Vivian watched her with tired eyes. I sat apart from them, clutching my phone, waiting for news about Celeste. Jack's text came just after midnight. Found her. 4 seasons. Same room as before. I stood up. Eleanor's head snapped toward me. Where are you going? To finish this. Harper, Vivian warned. Let the police handle it. The police don't know what we know. I grabbed my coat. About Richard. About any of it. Eleanor blocked my path. You've done enough damage. Me. I laughed, the sound sharp in the quiet room. You built this house of lies, Eleanor. All of you. I just lived in it. The 4 Seasons lobby was deserted when I arrived. The night clerk recognized me from my previous visit, his eyes widening. Room 742, I said. Call the police in 10 minutes. The elevator ride felt endless. When I reached her door, I didn't knock. I had Ethan's key card, the one that had started all this. Celeste sat on the bed, still in her blood-stained clothes. The room reeked of whiskey. Come to arrest me? Her voice was hollow. No. I closed the door. I came to understand. Understand what? How it feels to be erased. She took another drink. To watch your father build a perfect new family while pretending you never existed? Ethan tried to help you. Help me. She stood, swaying slightly. He paid me to stay quiet. Just like Richard did with my mother. The Caldwell solution. Throw money at the problem until it goes away. Then why come back? Because I wanted them to see me. The glass shattered against the wall. Really see me. Not as some dirty secret, but as family. By threatening Ethan? By shooting him. I never meant. She sank back onto the bed. I just wanted to belong somewhere. Footsteps in the hallway. Vivian's voice. Harper? Are you in there? I opened the door. Vivian entered, followed by Eleanor. The three Caldwell women, facing their prodigal daughter. Hello, Mother, Celeste said to Eleanor. Or should I say stepmother? Eleanor flinched. I didn't know. About you, about Richard's first marriage. Not until after he died. But Ethan knew, Vivian added quietly. He found the papers in Richard's study. Started tracking you down. To protect you, I corrected. From Eleanor finding out while Richard was alive. From the scandal destroying both families. And now, Celeste looked at Eleanor. Now that everyone knows? Sirens wailed in the distance. Eleanor straightened, every inch the Caldwell matriarch. Now we stop hiding. All of us. Ethan's out of surgery, Vivian said. He's asking for both of you. Celeste's eyes met mine. Why would he want to see me? Because he's the only one who never saw you as a secret. Held out my hand. He saw you as family. The sirens grew closer. Celeste stared at my outstretched hand, tears cutting through her mascara. I can't take it back, she whispered. Any of it. No, Eleanor said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. But we can go forward. Together. When the police arrived, they found 4 women sitting quietly in a hotel room, telling the truth for the first time in decades. The whole truth, about Richard, about the money, about a family built on secrets and shame. Later, as dawn broke over Boston, I sat by Ethan's hospital bed, watching him sleep. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. You okay? I thought about revenge, about justice, about the thin line between protecting and destroying the ones we love. About how sometimes the greatest act of courage isn't exposing the truth, but choosing what to do with it once it's exposed. No, I texted back. But I will be. We all will be. 6 months can change everything. The Boston winter had melted into spring, and I sat in my new apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes and the morning light. On my coffee table lay the final divorce papers, waiting for my signature. My phone buzzed, a text from Celeste. Coffee? The usual place. These meetings had become our strange ritual over the past few months, ever since she'd finished her court-mandated therapy. The charges had been reduced after Ethan refused to testify against her. Another Caldwell family solution, but maybe this time the right one. Lardison was quiet when I arrived. Celeste sat at our regular table, 2 lattes waiting. She looked different now, softer somehow, without the sharp edges of revenge to hold her together. Eleanor asked about you at the foundation meeting, she said as I sat down. She misses you in her Eleanor way. How's that going? Working with her. Surprisingly well. Turns out we're both good at organizing charity galas. She smiled faintly, though she still corrects my table settings. The foundation had been Eleanor's idea, transforming the private trust into a scholarship fund for children of broken families. A way to turn decades of secrets into something healing. And Ethan? Better. Physical therapy's helping. He's talking about moving to New York, starting fresh. She hesitated. He asks about you too. I touched the manila envelope in my bag containing the divorce papers. I know. He called yesterday. Are you going to sign? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Jack. Got the job! Starting Monday at the new agency. Thanks for the reference. Life's funny, I said, showing Celeste the message. A year ago, I hired Jack to expose your family's secrets. Now he's working for your security firm. Our family, she corrected gently. Whether you sign those papers or not. The bell above the door chimed. Vivian walked in, spotting us immediately. She'd been the bridge between all the broken pieces, somehow knowing exactly when to push and when to let things heal on their own. I hoped I'd find you both here, she said, sitting down. Eleanor's planning a summer party at the house. Proper one with both families invited. All the families. I thought about the past 6 months, the therapy sessions, the careful reconstructions of truth from lies, the slow building of something new from the ashes of what we'd burned down. I should go, I said, standing. I have some papers to sign. Harper. Celeste caught my hand. Whatever you decide. Thank you. For showing us there's more than one way to be family. At home, I opened the divorce papers again. Behind them was another envelope, the one Ethan had left at my door last week. Inside was a single photograph, all of us at Christmas, even Celeste's mother, who Eleanor had finally tracked down. We looked messy, imperfect, real. On the back, Ethan had written, "Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes it means holding on differently." I picked up my pen, understanding finally that this wasn't an ending. It was a transformation. The Caldwell family would always be part of my story, not as the perfect facade I'd married into, but as the beautifully flawed reality we'd all discovered together. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Eleanor. The foundation board meeting is Thursday. Your seat is still empty. I looked at the divorce papers, then at the Christmas photo. Sometimes the hardest part isn't choosing between right and wrong, but finding the courage to choose both, to let go of what was while holding space for what could be. I picked up my pen and began to write not just my name but my own ending. Or maybe it was a beginning. With families like ours, it's sometimes hard to tell the difference.
This is my tale, and my name is Ava. Jack and Linda Thompson, my parents, had it all. A lovely suburban home, lucrative occupations, and a plan. A plan that included producing a son, their cherished successor. They got me instead. The day I realized I wasn't the child they had hoped for is still fresh in my mind. I heard my mother talking on the phone when I was 5 years old and playing with my dolls in the living room. Yes, it's true, we're having a boy. There was an energy in her voice that I had never heard before. You don't realize how long we've been waiting for this. At last, a son. Those were harsh statements. Even though I didn't completely comprehend it at the time, I could feel the pain of being unwelcome and second best. After that, things changed rapidly. The gap between us widened as Mom's tummy expanded. When Dad wasn't working, he was always talking about the upcoming newborn boy. Mom summoned me into the kitchen one day. "Ava, sweetie, we need to talk." Legs hanging, I crawled into a chair. "What is it, Mommy?" She talked without glancing at me. "You will spend some time with Grandma. Isn't it thrilling? Daddy and Mommy must get ready for the baby. Grandma will be more enjoyable for you nonetheless." In an instant, I was taken to Grandma's home. Dad's mother, Grandma Rose, was a retired professor of English literature. She lived in a small, comfortable home that smelled of freshly made cookies and books. It was different living with Grandma. She seemed unconcerned by my presence, really listened to me, and paid attention when I spoke. She would share anecdotes about her time as a teacher with me while we read for hours. I felt loved, really loved, for the first time in my life. 2 years passed quickly. When Dad arrived at Grandma's house, I was 7 years old. He remarked, "It's time to come home, Ava. without looking directly into my eyes. "Your brother needs you." My brother? It was an unfamiliar word. Dad filled the lull with awkward small chat as we drove home. "Ethan is the name of your brother. He is now one. Ava, you are now a big sister. It is a significant duty." Not truly knowing what that meant, I nodded. I had no idea that my childhood was coming to an end. We pulled into our home's driveway. It felt different, yet it looked the same. With a kid on her hip, Mom was standing at the entrance, waiting. She continued, "Ava, meet your brother Ethan," in a rather official tone. I glanced at the youngster with the wavy blonde hair and the plump cheeks. With a gurgle, he extended a plump hand in my direction. "Hi, Ethan," I murmured. At the age of 7, I suddenly became more than simply a sister. I took on the role of caregiver, a duty, and an inbuilt babysitter. Dirty diapers, unrelenting attention to detail, and the burden of expectations I was not yet ready to handle took the place of my youth. I was warming bottles and changing diapers while my classmates were learning to ride bikes and play with dolls. "Ava, can you watch Ethan while I make a call?" Not really asking, Mom would say. I would agree and go to get my younger brother. I loved Ethan with all my heart, not because I didn't love him. I had fallen in love with him right away because of his toothless smile and clinging small hands. However, the ongoing accountability was too much to handle. The days were a whirl of childcare, housework, and school. I was worn out from juggling my schoolwork and making sure Ethan was content and secure. But it never seemed to be enough, no matter how hard I tried. I took Ethan to the park one terrible day. Now, too, he was lively and inquisitive. To knot my shoelace, I briefly turned my back, and then catastrophe happened. "Ava." Ethan let out a shout, and then there was a thump. He was lying on the ground, his knee gushing, as I turned around. I tried to calm his cries as I picked him up, but panic took over. Mom blew out when we came home. She said, "How could you be so careless? You're supposed to watch him." "I'm sorry, I just." No excuses. Dad added, his cheeks flushed with rage. "Enter your room. Later, we'll talk about your penalty." Tears were running down my cheeks as I ran upstairs. It was unfair. Even though I was only a child, I was trying my hardest. The incidences mounted. Ethan had a knock on his head from a tumble that I couldn't stop, and I didn't blow on his tongue sufficiently, causing him to burn on hot porridge. The penalties became more severe each time, and my parents' dissatisfaction became more apparent. Through it all, Grandma Rose was my lifeline. She'd visit when she could, her presence a balm to my battered spirit. During one visit, I overheard her confronting my parents in the kitchen. "This is unacceptable." Grandma's usually gentle voice was sharp. "Ava is a child, not a nanny. Your favoritism towards Ethan is hurting her. Please," Dad sighed. "These are our children. We know what's best for them." "Do you?" Grandma challenged. "Because from where I'm standing, you're neglecting one child in favor of the other." "That's enough," Mom cut in. "We appreciate your concern, but this is our family. We'll raise our children as we see fit." I threw myself into my studies. School became my sanctuary, a place where I could shine on my own merits. And shine I did. My grades were a silent rebellion against the notion that I wasn't good enough. The years flew by, and before I knew it, I was standing at a crossroads. High school was behind me, and college loomed ahead. Despite the constant struggle at home, I'd managed to excel in my studies. It was my ticket out, my chance at freedom. When the acceptance letter arrived, I could hardly believe my eyes. Not only had I been accepted to study investment management, but I'd also received a full scholarship. My hand shook as I read the words over and over again. Mom, Dad. I called out, racing down the stairs. I got in, full scholarship. Oh, thank goodness, Mom sighed, relief evident in her voice. That saves us a fortune. We need to start saving for Ethan's college fund. My heart sank. Of course, it wasn't about my achievement. It was about the money they wouldn't have to spend on me. The first few months were a whirlwind of classes, new friends, and the exhilarating taste of freedom. The money from my parents, combined with the small amounts Grandma Rose secretly sent, was just enough to scrape by. I was careful with every penny, knowing how precious this lifeline was. But 6 months into my college journey, everything changed again. My phone rang one evening as I was studying for a finance exam. Ava, Mom's voice came through curt and businesslike. We won't be sending you any more money. Ethan needs tutors if he's going to have any chance at college. We need to focus our resources on him now. I felt the familiar sting of rejection, of being cast aside. But Mom, I can barely. You're an adult now, Ava, she cut me off. You need to solve your own problems. We can't keep supporting you forever. The next few weeks were a blur of stress and sleepless nights. I scoured job boards and applied to every position. I could finally find a part-time gig at a nearby cafe. The hours were long, the pay was meager, but it was something. Balancing work and studies was brutal. I'd rush from classes to shifts, then stay up late into the night studying. Dark circles became a permanent fixture under my eyes, and my grades started to slip. One particularly rough day, I called Grandma Rose, desperate for a friendly voice. Ava, sweetheart, you sound exhausted, she said, concern evident in her voice. The dam broke through tears. I told her everything, the cut-off allowance, the grueling work hours, the struggle to keep up with my studies. Those absolute. Grandma cut herself off. Taking a deep breath, she said, listen to me, Ava. You focus on your studies. I'm increasing your monthly allowance, and don't you dare argue with me about it. But Grandma, no buts, she said firmly. You deserve this education, and you shouldn't have to kill yourself working to get it. Your parents? Well, let's just say I'll be having words with them. True to her word, Grandma's support allowed me to cut back my work hours. I could breathe again and focus on my classes. My grades improved, and for the first time in months, I felt hope. The years at college flew by in a blur of textbooks, exams, and late-night study sessions. Before I knew it, I was standing on the stage, diploma in hand, magna cum laude gleaming on the certificate. As I scanned the audience, I spotted Grandma Rose beaming with pride. My parents and Ethan were noticeably absent. With my degree in hand, doors opened. I landed a job at Stonebridge Investments, a prestigious firm in the city. The salary was more money than I'd ever seen, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly independent. To save money, I moved in with Sarah, a coworker who became a fast friend. Our tiny apartment was a far cry from the dorms, but it was ours, and it felt like freedom. When my first paycheck arrived, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I scoured every secondhand bookstore in the city until I found it. A rare first edition of Grandma's favorite author. The following weekend, I took a train to my hometown with the gift in hand. Grandma's face lit up when she saw me at her door. Ava, what a wonderful surprise. I presented her with a wrapped book, watching as tears welled in her eyes when she opened it. Oh, my dear girl, she whispered, hugging me tight. You shouldn't have. I wanted to, I said simply. You've done so much for me, Grandma. As we chatted over tea, I mentioned visiting my parents. Grandma's face tightened slightly, but she nodded. I'm sure they'd love to see you. But when I called, Mom's voice was distant. Oh, this weekend we're quite busy, Ava. Perhaps another time. The rejection stung, but I pushed it aside. I spent the weekend with Grandma instead, relishing her warmth and genuine interest in my life. As I boarded the train back to the city on Sunday, I couldn't help but feel a mix of sadness and relief. Time marched on, and 2 years passed in the blink of an eye. My career soared, my bosses praised my work ethic and insight, and the bonuses started rolling in. Soon I was able to afford my own apartment, a small sun-filled space that was all mine. One evening, as I was settling in for a quiet night, my phone rang. Mom's name flashed on the screen. Ava, she said without preamble, these teachers, they just don't understand Ethan. They're giving him such poor grades. He barely scraped into City College. I bit my lip, choosing my words carefully. Mom, maybe college isn't the right path for everyone. There are great vocational courses Ethan could. Don't be stupid, she snapped. Your brother is brilliant, much smarter than you, actually. He's just misunderstood. He'll show everyone. You'll see. As I hung up, I gazed around my apartment, the tangible proof of my success. Yet somehow, I still felt like that little girl desperately seeking approval. Life has a funny way of appending expectations. While I was building my career brick by careful brick, Ethan's college experience was crumbling around him. It was a crisp autumn day when Mom called again, her voice tight with frustration. Ethan's been expelled, she said without preamble. He's coming home. She launched into a tirade about unfair professors and a system designed to fail students like Ethan. I listened, biting my tongue against the urge to point out the thousands they'd spent on his education, the loans they'd taken out to rent him a luxury apartment, the generous allowance they'd provided, all things I'd never had. We'll figure something out, Mom concluded. Ethan just needs time to find his path. I thought about Ethan, now 21, returning to our childhood home, while I, at 27, was forging ahead in my career. The contrast was stark, but I pushed the thought aside. Comparison is the thief of joy, after all. Life, however, had other plans for me. It was at a company event that I met Jack, tall, kind-eyed, with a quick wit that made me laugh like I hadn't in years. Our whirlwind romance swept me off my feet, and before I knew it, we were standing in a small chapel exchanging vows in front of a handful of loved ones. Grandma Rose was there, of course, beaming with pride. My parents attended too, though their smiles seemed a bit forced. Ethan didn't come, citing a vague prior commitment. Jack and I moved into his apartment, a cozy space that quickly became home. His parents, Tom and Ellen, welcomed me with open arms. Their warmth was a balm to my soul. A year into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. The joy that filled me was indescribable. When we announced it to our families, Jack's parents were ecstatic. My parents' reaction was more subdued. "Do you know what it is yet?" Mom asked. Immediately, I shook my head. It's too early to tell. As the months passed, their interest in the baby's gender became almost obsessive. When we finally revealed it was a boy, their relief was palpable. "A grandson," Dad exclaimed. "That's wonderful news, Ava." I tried not to read too much into their reaction, focusing instead on preparing for our son's arrival. Little Alexander came into the world on a rainy Tuesday, his tiny hand wrapping around my finger as if to say, "I'm here, Mom. I've got you." As I held him, I vowed to give him all the love and support I'd craved as a child. While I was navigating new motherhood, Ethan continued to drift. He picked up odd jobs here and there, but nothing stuck. He was still living at home, much to our parents' poorly concealed frustration. During a rare family dinner, I tried to broach the subject gently. You know, Ethan, there's an entry-level position opening up at my company. I could put in a good word. Ava, Mom cut me off sharply. Your brother doesn't need your charity. He's just taking his time to find the right opportunity. Dad nodded in agreement. You were lucky, Ava. Things just fell into place for you. Not everyone has it so easy. I blinked, stunned, lucky. The sleepless nights studying, the years of juggling work and school, the constant struggle to prove my worth, none of that felt like luck. But I swallowed my retort, not wanting to start an argument. As I looked around the table at my parents' defensive postures, Ethan's sullen expression, and little Alexander babbling happily in his high chair, I felt the weight of my reality. I realized something profound. Family isn't just about blood. It's about support, understanding, and unconditional love. Sometimes the family you choose can fill the gaps left by the one you're born into. As Alexander's 5th birthday approached, we planned a trip to my hometown. Jack, our son, and me. Our first stop was Grandma Rosa's house. We spent a wonderful afternoon with her, Alexander captivated by her stories and the old photos she showed him. As we were leaving, Grandma pulled me aside. Your parents have been struggling, she said softly. Maybe it's time to let bygones be bygones. The next day, we stood on my parents' doorstep. Mom answered, looking older and more tired than I remembered. Dad was in his armchair, Ethan slouched on the couch. They both looked up as we entered. After awkward greetings and stilted small talk, Mom cleared her throat. Ava, we need to talk to you about something. What followed was a halting explanation of their financial troubles, medical bills, Ethan's ongoing unemployment, the lingering college debt. It had all piled up. We hate to ask, Dad said, not meeting my eyes, but we could use some help. I glanced at Jack, who gave me a subtle nod. Despite everything, these were my parents. Of course, I heard myself say, I can send some money each month. The relief on their faces was palpable. We worked out the details, $1,500 a month, with the understanding that they could reach out if emergencies arose. Over the next 2 years, I faithfully sent them money each month. There were occasional requests for extra help. A broken water heater, unexpected car repairs, which I always obliged. It felt good to be able to help, to maybe finally earn their approval. When Thanksgiving rolled around, we found ourselves back in my childhood home. The house was full. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and Grandma Rose all crowded around the dining table as we ate. Mom and Dad couldn't stop talking about Ethan. He's been at his new job for 3 months now, Mom beamed. Such a hard worker. Dad chimed in. Did you see the new sofa cushions? Ethan bought those with his first paycheck. So thoughtful of him. I glanced around the room, noting the new curtains, the fresh paint on the walls, the updated appliances in the kitchen, all purchased with the money I'd been sending. But I bit my tongue, not wanting to spoil the mood. Jack squeezed my hand under the table, a silent show of support. Alexander, oblivious to the undercurrents, happily chatted with his cousins. The Thanksgiving dinner continued, the chatter of family filling the air. I was just starting to relax when Alexander tugged at my sleeve. Mom, can I go play in the other room? He asked, his eyes bright with the restlessness of a 5-year-old at a grown-up gathering. I nodded, ruffling his hair. Sure, sweetie, just don't make too much noise, okay? Okay. As Alexander scampered off, I turned back to the conversation. Barely a minute had passed when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen, confusion furrowing my brow. The caller ID read Mom. I looked up at my mother, sitting directly across from me at the table. Mom, why are you calling me? She frowned, shaking her head. I'm not calling you, dear. My phone's in the living room. Just then, Alexander reappeared in the doorway, my mother's phone clutched in his small hands. The room felt quiet as all eyes turned to him. "Mommy," he said, his voice ringing in the sudden silence. I found Grandma's phone, and I wanted to see who she talks to. I saw a funny name, Cash Cow, and clicked on it to see who it would call. "Why did it call you?" "Mommy, what's a cash cow?" The words hit me like a physical blow. Cash cow. Is that all I am to them? I looked around the table. My relatives sat frozen, forks halfway to their mouths. Grandma Rose's face was a mask of shock and anger, and my parents had gone deathly pale. The silence stretched thick and suffocating until something inside me snapped. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Cash cow?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "Is that what I am to you?" My mother opened her mouth, but no words came out. My father couldn't even meet my eyes. "Let me tell you all something," I continued, addressing the whole table. "For the past 2 years, I've been sending my parents $1,500 every month. When they've asked for extra, I sent that too. All those new things you've been admiring, the curtains, the appliances, the fresh paint, that was all bought with my money." I could feel tears pricking at my eyes, but I blinked them back. I did this despite years of being treated like I was second best, despite being sent away as a child, despite having to work my way through college while Ethan got everything handed to him. I did it because I thought maybe, finally, you'd see me. You'd be proud of me. My voice cracked on the last words, but instead, I'm just your cash cow, a source to be milked dry. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Jack stood up and put his arm around me, a solid presence at my side. Alexander, not fully understanding but sensing the tension, came and wrapped his arms around my legs. The silence in the room was deafening. I stood there, heart pounding, waiting for my parents to say something. Anything. An apology, an explanation, even a denial. But what came next shocked me to my core. My mother's face hardened, her eyes flashing with indignation. "Well, of course you help us. We gave birth to you, raised you. It's your duty. Don't be so sensitive about a silly phone contact." I felt as if I'd been slapped. Years of pent-up frustration and hurt bubbled to the surface. Duty? Is that what you think this is? Well, let me make this clear. From this day forward, I'm done. No more money, no more help. I'm cutting ties. Mom's attitude abruptly altered when the subject of losing financial support was brought up. Her eyes welled up with tears. "How can you be so heartless after everything we've done for you?" She looked around the table, asking our family members for help. To her and my amazement, however, they said nothing. They turned away from her beseeching eyes one by one. Grandma Rose then interrupted, her voice trembling with rage. "Heartless? Given your treatment of Ava, do you dare to label her heartless? Let me tell you something, though, you can forget about any inheritance. And I also don't want to be involved with you anymore. All of it is headed to Alexander and Ava." Chaos broke out in the room. Ethan sat there looking confused while Mom sobbed and Dad tried to comfort her. I was grounded in the middle of it all by Jack's hand on my shoulder. "I think it's time we left," he muttered down. I gave a nod, suddenly exhausted. Without another word to my parents, we picked up Alexander, packed our things, said Grandma Rose, and the rest of the family farewell, and headed away. I stopped all financial aid as I had promised. Soon the calls came in, approving at first, then angry, then downright vicious. I turned the texts into threats and said I would sue them if they didn't stop. The phone calls and texts finally stopped. Life went on. I focused on Jack, Alexander's upbringing, and my job. Through her love and support, Grandma Rose helped me recover from the hurt created by my parents' betrayal, and she became an even more important part of our lives. The years passed. It was said that Ethan had accumulated substantial debt. To rescue him, my parents had to sell their house in a panic. The three of them eventually relocated to a little apartment across town. I was surprised to find that I had lost every emotion, including wrath, sympathy, and satisfaction, after hearing the news. Both they and I had already made up our minds. As I watched Alexander play in our garden today, with Jack following me and Grandma Rose grinning from her favorite patio chair, I came to the sobering realization that I had finally discovered my role and my worth, and that no one could ever take it away from me. It all began when I met Tom in college. My name is Sarah. Despite being enrolled in different courses, we clicked immediately. He was humorous, personable, and really attractive. We dated during our time in college, and by the time we graduated, we were deeply in love. We were married shortly after graduation, and I was ecstatic. Alan and George, my wealthy parents, had always provided for all of my needs. My wedding was no different. It was a dream come true, complete with a white gown, a lavish setting, and more. It was a happy first year of marriage. We had the world at our feet, were young, and were in love. I was teaching at a nearby elementary school, and Tom had secured a fantastic position with a marketing company. It was a nice life. Then I discovered I was pregnant almost a year after we were married. Although I was ecstatic, his response wasn't exactly what I had anticipated. Though it didn't reach his eyes, he grinned. I dismissed his lackluster reaction, attributing it to shock. I had faith that he would change his mind after hearing the news. Lily, our daughter, was born 9 months later. She had a pair of lungs that could rouse the dead, 10 tiny fingers, and 10 tiny toes. I fell deeply in love. Tom, however, appeared overburdened. Lily felt like a ticking time bomb in his clumsy grasp. He had almost fled the room whenever she screamed, which was frequently. One night when Lily had finally gone to sleep, he remarked, "I thought we'd have more time, you know." I attempted to soothe him, saying, "To enjoy being married, travel, all that stuff." "Tom, we can still do all of that." With Lily, things will simply be a bit different. Tom began staying late at work more frequently as the months passed. Citing difficult customers and large tasks, he had returned home after Lily had gone to sleep. A persistent skepticism began to form in the pit of my stomach, despite my want to believe him. For Tom, Friday nights turned into a night for males. He would go out with his coworkers and return home in the early hours of the morning, smelling strongly of alcohol. When Lily's cries woke him awake, he would yell, "Keep that kid quiet, will you?" Some of us need to sleep. 3 years passed quickly, filled with diaper changes, tantrums, and fleeting happiness. With her dad's emerald eyes and my obstinate chin, Lily, who was now 3 years old, was a ball of activity. Lily had begun kindergarten, and I had returned to my job. Although Tom and I had established a pattern, it seemed like we were only following the steps. Then the day arrived, shattering the remnants of our marriage. Over dinner one evening, Tom declared, "Next week, I'm going on a business trip. I'll be gone for 3 days." I nodded, used by now to his frequent travels. Tom's mother, Martha, called me in a panic the day after he departed. Her voice was tremulous as she continued, "Sarah, I'm at the hospital. Some chest aches struck me. Could you inform Tom?" My heart pounded. Martha, of course. I'll give him a call immediately. However, Tom was not picking up his phone. I began to worry after hours of trying. What if he had also been affected? I frantically contacted Mike, his supervisor. Business trip. Mike sounded perplexed. I didn't send Tom on any trip. My entire universe shook. Where in the world was Tom if he wasn't traveling for work? I was prepared when, 3 days later, he came in the door whistling, as if he had no worries at all. "How was your trip?" With a sarcastic tone in my voice, I inquired. "Your mom's in the hospital, and your boss says he never sent you anywhere." Tom's expression lost its color. "Sarah, I can explain." "Save it," I spat out. "For once, just be honest with me. Are you unfaithful to me?" I only needed the stillness that ensued as a response. "Her name is Amanda," Tom said at last. "It's been going on for a while now." It was a messy divorce. Tom argued with me over everything, including Lily's teddy bear, the home, and the automobile. The saddest part, though, was when he stopped paying child support. During one of our sessions, he growled, "I'm not paying for a kid I never wanted." Something broke inside of me. "Fine," I answered in a chilly tone. "I want you to give up your parental rights, but keep your money. Make it official that you don't want to have children since it's obvious." Tom didn't even hesitate, which shocked me. With a flourish, he signed the paperwork, and he was gone from our lives. The following 2 years were difficult. Being a single mother was more difficult than I could have ever imagined. But Tom's parents, bless them, helped out with Lily and provided us with money when they could. Then I met Jack when Lily was 5 years old. Emma, his daughter, was a year younger than Lily, and he was a widower. PTA meetings and playground get-togethers helped us connect, and before I knew it, I was falling in love once more. Lily and Emma were our flower girls, and we were married in a modest ceremony. For the first time in years, I felt hope blossoming in my chest as I watched Jack with the girls. Our small family became closer over time. Lily began addressing Jack as Dad, whereas Emma referred to me as Mom. We seemed to have been destined to be together from the beginning. 3 years after we got married, our son Max was born. Jack doted on all 3 kids equally, never distinguishing between his and mine. We were happy, really and truly happy. 20 years. Sometimes it feels like yesterday that Lily was a toddler tottering around our living room. Now, at 25, she's a college graduate, engaged and planning her own wedding. Where did the time go? Lily's fiancé is a great guy. Jack and I both like him. He's kind, hardworking, and he clearly adores our daughter. When they announced their engagement, Jeff opened a special account for Lily's wedding expenses and gave her full access. When we told Lily, she burst into tears and hugged us both. For weeks after that, our house was a flurry of wedding magazines, color swatches, and excited phone calls. Lily would burst through the door, bubbling over with news about venues, dresses, and floral arrangements. "Mom, Dad, you won't believe what we found," she'd exclaim, spreading photos across our kitchen table. "Isn't this centerpiece gorgeous?" Jack and I would nod and smile, caught up in her enthusiasm. It warmed my heart to see her so happy to be part of this exciting time in her life. But then things started to change. The visits became less frequent, the phone calls shorter. At first, I chalked it up to wedding stress. Planning a wedding is no small feat after all. But as the weeks went by, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Then on a quiet Sunday afternoon, Lily showed up unannounced. The moment I saw her face, I knew something was wrong. Her usual bright smile was gone, replaced by a tense, almost nervous expression. "Mom, I need to talk to you and Jack," she said, stumbling over the name. My heart dropped. Jack, not Dad. In all the years since Jack had come into our lives, I'd never heard Lily call him anything but Dad. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Let me get Jack." I found my husband in the garage, tinkering with his latest project. One look at my face, and he was on his feet, wiping his hands on a rag. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern etching his features. "It's Lily," I replied. "She wants to talk to us, and Jack. She called you Jack." I saw the hurt flash across his face before he schooled his expression into calm neutrality. He nodded, took my hand, and together we walked back into the house. Lily was sitting at the kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Jack and I sat down across from her, our hands still linked under the table. The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. "All right, Lily," Jack said, his voice gentle despite the worry I could see in his eyes. "We're here. What did you want to talk about?" Lily took a deep breath, her eyes darting between Jack and me. "I met my biological father a couple of months ago. I was at Grandma Martha's, and he showed up. We talked for hours. He's changed, Mom. He wants to make things right." I felt Jack stiffen beside me. "And what does this have to do with the wedding?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. Lily's chin lifted, a stubborn set to her jaw that I recognized all too well. "He asked to walk me down the aisle, and I want him to." The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear the sound of Jack's heart breaking. "Lily," I said gently, "sweetheart, I know this is confusing, but Jack has been your dad since you were 5. Tom abandoned you. He signed away his rights. He made a mistake. Jack's sorry now. He wants to fix things." Lily's voice rose. Jack leaned forward, his face a mask of hurt and confusion. "Lily, I've raised you as my own for 20 years. I've been there for every scraped knee, every school play, every heartbreak. I thought I was your dad." "You are," she insisted, then faltered. "I mean, you're my stepdad, and I love you, but Tom is my real father. It's my wedding, and I want him to walk me down the aisle." I saw the moment Jack's heart shattered. His face crumpled for a split second before he regained control. "Lily," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've always considered you my daughter, not my stepdaughter." "My daughter." "Well, I'm not," Lily shouted, jumping to her feet. "You're my stepfather, not my real dad. This is my wedding, and I'll decide who walks me down the aisle." The front door slammed and Emma, Jack's biological daughter, rushed into the kitchen. "What's going on? Why is everyone yelling?" Close behind her was Max, our son, looking bewildered. "Mom, Dad, Lily." I quickly filled them in, watching their faces change from confusion to anger. "How could you do this to Dad?" Emma demanded, glaring at Lily. "After everything he's done for you." Max nodded, his young face twisted with hurt. "Yeah, Lily, Dad's always treated us all the same. How can you say he's not your real dad?" Lily looked around wildly, her eyes filling with tears. "You don't understand. None of you understand." With that, she bolted from the house, the door slamming behind her. We all stood there in stunned silence. Jack's face was ashen, his eyes fixed on the spot where Lily had been standing. Emma moved to his side, wrapping an arm around him. Max joined them, and I watched as my family closed ranks around Jack. I moved to Jack's other side, taking his hand. He looked at me, his eyes swimming with tears. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Where did I go wrong?" My heart broke for him, for all of us. "You didn't go wrong," I said firmly. "You've been the best father any of these kids could ask for. I don't know what's gotten into her." As we stood there, our little family huddled together in the kitchen, I couldn't help but wonder how things had gone so wrong. And more importantly, how are we going to fix this? The days following Lily's bombshell announcement were tense. Jack and I kept expecting her to call, to apologize, to come to her senses, but the call never came. Instead, my phone started buzzing with notifications, friends and family members sending me links asking if I'd seen Lily's latest posts. With a heavy heart, I opened her social media page. There they were, photos of Lily with Tom, both grinning at the camera, so happy to reconnect with my real dad. The caption read. Each word felt like a knife twisting in my gut. When I showed Jack, his face hardened. "That's it," he said, his voice low and controlled. "If she doesn't consider me her father anymore, I'm not paying for her wedding. I'm blocking her access to the wedding account. She's made her choice." I didn't argue. How could I when he looked so broken? A few days later, the other shoe dropped. Lily burst into our house like a hurricane, her face red with fury. "What the hell?" she screamed, not even bothering with a greeting. "Why can't I access the wedding account? How am I supposed to pay the vendors, the venue, the caterers?" "I'm sure your real father can help you out," Jack replied, his voice cold in a way I'd never heard before. "Since you've chosen him, it seems only right that he should foot the bill." Lily gaped at him, then turned to me. "Mom, you can't let him do this. Make him give me access to the account." I shook my head slowly. "Lily, this is Jack's decision, and frankly, I agree with him." "What?" she shrieked. "How can you take his side? I'm your daughter." "And Jack is my husband," I replied firmly. "He's been more of a father to you than Tom ever was. You can't expect to hurt him like this and still have him pay for your wedding." Lily's face contorted with rage. "Fine," she spat. "If that's how it's going to be, then you need to make a choice. Mom, it's me or him. Your daughter or your husband. Choose." She stood there, chest heaving, clearly expecting me to cave to choose her. My flesh and blood, over Jack. But in that moment, looking at her tantrum-throwing face, I didn't recognize my daughter at all. "I'm not choosing anyone, Lily," I said quietly. "I love you and I love Jack, but I agree with his decision. You're an adult now. If you want Tom to be your real father, then you need to deal with the consequences of that choice." Lily's face crumpled for a moment. I saw a flicker of the little girl she used to be, the one who would run to Jack with skinned knees and bad dreams. Then her expression hardened again. "I hate you," she sobbed. "I hate both of you." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. A few days after Lily's dramatic exit, my phone buzzed again. Another social media notification. With a sense of dread, I opened it. There was Lily, beaming next to Tom. The caption read, "Thanks to my amazing dad for funding my dream wedding. It's going to be the event of the century. P.S. Sarah, Jack and kids, don't bother showing up. You're not invited." I showed Jack, who just shook his head sadly. Where did Tom suddenly get all this money? He wondered aloud. I shrugged. Who knows? Maybe he won the lottery. Either way, it's not our problem anymore. We tried to put it out of our minds to focus on our life and our other kids, but fate, it seemed, had other plans. A week later, there was a knock at our door. I opened it to find Martha and George, Tom's parents, looking worried and frazzled. "Sarah, dear," Martha said, wringing her hands, "we need your help." I ushered them in, calling for Jack. Once we were all settled in the living room, George spoke up. "We got a call from the bank," he explained. "They're saying we've missed a loan payment, but we never took out a loan." The next day, I found myself at the bank with Martha and George, piecing together a disturbing puzzle. Tom, it turned out, had taken out a massive loan using forged documents. He'd made his parents unwitting co-signers. "I'm so sorry," the bank manager said, looking genuinely distressed. "But unless the loan is repaid, we'll have to start proceedings against Mr. and Mrs. Johnson." Martha burst into tears. George looked shell-shocked. "We'll figure this out," I assured them, even as my mind raced. How could Tom do this to his own parents? Back at home, I filled Jack in on everything. He listened, his face growing grimmer by the second. "We need to call the police," he said finally. "Tom's committed fraud. His parents shouldn't suffer for his crimes." I nodded, my heart heavy. Despite everything, I never wanted it to come to this. The next few days were a whirlwind. Police statements, bank meetings, more tears from Martha and George, and then finally, the news we'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. Tom had been arrested. As the details emerged, the full scope of Tom's deception became clear. He'd taken out the loan not just for Lily's wedding, but to impress a new girlfriend. He'd been living large on borrowed money and forged signatures. "The funds have been frozen," the detective informed us. "We'll be seizing them as evidence." My thoughts immediately went to Lily. All that money she'd been bragging about, the lavish wedding she'd been planning. It was all gone, fruits of a poison tree. That evening, as Jack and I sat on the porch trying to process everything that had happened, my phone rang. It was Lily. "Mom," she sobbed, her voice cracking. "Everything's ruined. The money's gone, the wedding's off. What am I going to do?" I closed my eyes, feeling a complex mix of emotions. Sympathy, frustration, a tiny bit of vindication, but mostly I felt tired, so very tired. "I don't know, Lily," I said softly. "I really don't know." A few days after the phone call, Lily showed up at our doorstep. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair disheveled. She looked nothing like the radiant bride-to-be she'd been just weeks ago. "Mom, Dad," she said, her voice small. I noticed she was calling Jack Dad again. "I need your help." We invited her in, sitting around the kitchen table where we'd had so many family discussions before. Jack's face was a mask of calm, but I could see the turmoil in his eyes. "The wedding's off unless we can find the money," Lily explained, her words tumbling out. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but please, can you help me? Can you give me the money for the wedding?" I glanced at Jack. His jaw was set, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. Part of him wanted to sweep in and fix everything like he always had, but we both knew we couldn't do that this time. "Lily," I said gently, "we can't just give you the money, not after everything that's happened." "But," Lily started to protest, but Jack cut her off. "We can't forgive you that quickly," he said, his voice firm but not unkind. "Actions have consequences, Lily. You made your choice, and now you have to deal with the fallout." Lily's face crumpled. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "Ben is furious. He says I'm unstable, that I create drama. He's threatening to call off the engagement if we can't have the wedding we planned." My heart ached for her. Despite everything, she was still my little girl. I wanted to wrap her in my arms and make everything better, but I knew we couldn't. "Sweetheart," I said, reaching out to take her hand. "I'm so sorry you're going through this, but this is a problem you created, and it's one you need to solve yourself. We love you." Jack added, his voice thick with emotion, "But we can't bail you out of this. It wouldn't be right, and it wouldn't help you in the long run." Lily looked between us, realization dawning in her eyes. We weren't going to cave. We weren't going to fix this for her. "Fine," she spat, yanking her hand away from mine. "I'll figure it out myself. I don't need you, either of you." She stormed out, leaving Jack and me sitting in stunned silence. Weeks passed. We heard through the grapevine that Lily and Ben had gotten married at the city hall, with just a handful of guests present. We weren't invited. The night we heard about the wedding, I found Jack sitting on the porch, staring into the distance. "I feel like I failed her," he said quietly as I sat down next to him. I took his hand, squeezing it gently. You didn't fail her, Jack. We raised her to be strong, independent, and responsible. Sometimes that means letting her face the consequences of her actions. But what if we pushed her away for good? He asked, his voice breaking. I leaned my head on his shoulder. Every person in life faces situations where they have to make a choice, I said softly. Sometimes those choices turn out to be wrong. That's what happened with Lily. But she's strong. She'll learn from this, and hopefully she'll find her way back to us. We sat there in silence, watching the sunset. Our family had been through a storm, and I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. But as I sat there with Jack, I felt a glimmer of hope. We'd weathered storms before. We'd weather this one too. 3 months after Lily's hasty City Hall wedding, I bumped into an old friend at the grocery store. As we caught up, she let slip something that made my heart skip a beat. I heard Lily and Ben are having trouble, she said, lowering her voice. Someone told me they're talking about divorce. I thanked her, my mind reeling. As soon as I got home, I filled Jack in. We debated for hours before finally deciding to reach out to Lily. To our surprise, she answered on the first ring. Mom, her voice was small, reminding me of when she was little and had a nightmare. Sweetheart, we heard. Is everything okay? There was a long pause, then a choked sob. No, Mom, nothing's okay. Jack and I invited her and Ben over the next evening. They sat across from us at the kitchen table, looking worn and defeated. We can't stop fighting, Lily admitted, her eyes downcast. Ben resents me for the wedding fiasco, for alienating all of you. His parents are furious that they weren't at the wedding. Ben nodded, looking miserable. I love Lily, but I don't know if love is enough anymore. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Marriage isn't easy, I started. God knows Jack and I have had our rough patches, but divorce. That's a big step. Are you sure you've tried everything? Lily burst into tears. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. For everything, Dad, Jack. I'm so sorry for what I said, for how I treated you. Mom, I'm sorry for trying to make you choose. I've ruined everything. Jack reached across the table, taking Lily's hand. You haven't ruined everything, sweetheart. You made mistakes, yes, but we all do. Have you considered seeing a family therapist? To our relief, they both nodded. Throughout the first time in months, we really talked throughout the remainder of the evening. More tears were shed, but there was also laughing, and by the time Lily and Ben had gone, I had a ray of optimism. Lily and Ben pushed themselves into treatment over the course of the following few months. The therapist even invited Jack and me to join them for a session. Digging out past wounds and miscommunications was difficult, but it was also therapeutic. Gradually, we saw changes. Ben and Lily resumed their previous manner of looking at one another. Family dinners resumed their customary routine, this time with laughter and talk rather than conflict. Lily joined Jack and me one evening as we sat on the patio to watch the sunset. She curled up behind Jack like she had done as a child. She said, Dad, I'm so sorry for everything. I was a fool to ever claim that you weren't my biological father. Jack gave her a hard hug while his eyes were hazy. You have my affection, child. I always have and always will. Through Martha and George, we learned that Tom had been given a suspended sentence for the fraud. He had left town the last time we heard from him, presumably to start over someplace else. Life isn't flawless. Our family is still recovering, and Lily and Ben continue to face difficulties. However, I feel hopeful as I sit here and watch Jack and Lily converse and giggle. We have survived this storm, and I think we are stronger now. I have no idea what the future will bring, But I do know that family is about love, forgiveness, and sticking together through difficult times, not about blood or legal papers. And we are unquestionably a family by that definition. The ideal little family, Mom, Dad, Megan, and I, remembers those times as if they were yesterday. We were simply regular people living our best lives. We weren't famous or wealthy. Despite his constant focus on numbers as an accountant, Dad would light up when he arrived home. Mom was a teacher who, wherever she went, shared compassion and wisdom. On weekends, we would load up our beaten station wagon and head off to explore the countryside. Mom would sing along, horribly off-key, but unconcerned, as Dad played his favorite oldies. I would secretly enjoy every minute of it while rolling my eyes while sitting in the back. Those were the finest road trips. We would eat greasy burgers and share a huge milkshake in seedy eateries. "I'm just testing them for poison, sweetie," Mom would say every time she took my fries. We would visit the local mall when we weren't on the road. I would bring them from one store to another, begging for the newest toys and trying on absurd costumes. Dad was a softie, while Mom was the voice of reason. When Mom wasn't there, he would sneak me a few more dollars while saying, "Our little secret, Meggie." Pizza evenings were held on Fridays. We would place our order, watch corny movies, and spread out on the floor of the living room. Mom would silence Dad when he tried to explain the storylines, and I would stuff my face with pepperoni, just interested in the present. Mom started feeling exhausted all the time when I was 11 years old. We didn't give it much thought at first because teaching is, after all, so demanding. Then followed the doctor's appointments, the anxious mutterings, and the silent phone conversations. No one explained anything to me, so I had no idea what was going on. However, I sensed the shift in the atmosphere. The road trip ceased, the laughter slowed, and the pizza evenings gave way to tense, silent meals. I heard Dad talking on the phone one evening, his voice breaking. "Mike, the therapies aren't working. I have no idea what we will do." I realized then that Mom was seriously ill, and that our idyllic little world was on the verge of collapsing. I longed to return to those carefree times, stop time, and remain in that state of blissful ignorance indefinitely. However, that isn't how life operates. There was nothing I could do to prevent the storm from approaching. I attempt to recall the wonderful memories, like the taste of pizza on a Friday night, the sound of Dad laughing, and the scent of Mom's perfume, by closing my eyes for the time being. All I have left of the life I used to lead, the life I fervently hope to return to, are those memories. It took place on Tuesday. I recall it because it was pizza night, but there was only quiet and the awful beeping of hospital equipment instead of food, laughing, or Mom. Dad's voice cracked as he continued, "Megan, sweetie." Mom, she's gone. Suddenly, my entire world fell apart. My dearest companion and support, Mom, was no longer with me. As Dad held me and soaked my hair with his tears, I stood there motionless, unable to breathe or think. The weeks that followed were a haze of calls, whispered words, and dark clothing. It was impossible for me to eat. I was waiting for Mom to come in and tell me that it was all a horrible dream. However, she never did. Then, almost half a year after Mom passed away, something changed. Dad began to go out more. Before I saw her, I believed he was improving. She looked nothing like Mom and was tall and blonde. She had a smile that stopped short of her eyes, and her name was Karen. With an anxious expression, Dad added, "This is Karen, Megan." We have been going out together. It seemed unbelievable to me. He was already taking Mom's place, and she wasn't even cold in her grave. Karen's face was inches from mine as she leaned down. "Hello, Megan. I've been hearing a lot about you." Karen's eyes were hard and calculating, and her grin faded when Dad wasn't looking. I knew right then that this woman was danger. Karen was everywhere for the following few weeks. She would join us for supper, watch TV, and even attempt to assist me with my schoolwork. However, the mask would come off as soon as Dad's back was turned. One day, when we were by ourselves, she snarled, "Listen, kid. I intend to remain here. Don't think of any ways to ruin this for me." I truly did try to inform Dad. He only shook his head, though. "Karen is a lovely person, but I know this is difficult for you, Megan. All you're feeling is jealousy. Perhaps we ought to arrange for you to speak with someone." Feeling envious, it seemed unbelievable to me. Even my own dad believed I was making this up. Before I knew it, I was sitting in a therapist's office being informed that I struggled with change and had adjustment difficulties. In some way, Karen had persuaded Dad, our family, and even the neighbors that I was having problems. I heard her remark over the phone, "Poor Megan. She's struggling so much. There are mental health issues. We are providing her with the necessary assistance." Then the shocking news arrived. Dad broke the news a year and a half after Mom passed away. "We're getting married, Karen, me, and me. To allow you time to acclimate, we decided it would be ideal if you spent the summer at camp." However, I was aware that they were shipping me off so that my sour face, as Karen described it, wouldn't mar their wonderful day. Knowing that everything would be changed when I returned, I set out for camp with a sad heart. There was nothing I could do to stop my family from changing, therefore my house would no longer be mine. I returned from camp with a knot in my stomach. The house looked the same from the outside, but as soon as I stepped through the door, I knew everything had changed. "Welcome home, Megan," Karen said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We need to talk about room arrangements. With the baby coming, we'll need to make some changes." My head spun. "Baby? What baby?" Dad's face lit up. "That's right, you don't know. Karen's pregnant. You're going to be a big sister." Karen led me upstairs, chattering about nursery colors and baby names. We stopped at my room, or what used to be my room. "We started converting this into the nursery," Karen said, pushing open the door. My heart sank. My posters were gone, replaced by pastel wallpaper. My desk had vanished, a crib standing in its place. "Where's my stuff?" I managed to choke out. Karen waved dismissively. "Oh, we moved you to the guest room. It's cozier anyway." The guest room was barely bigger than a closet. My things were piled haphazardly on the bed, some boxes still sealed. "This is temporary, right?" I asked, looking at Dad. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Well, Meggie, with a new baby, I got the message. I was being pushed out, replaced." The next few months were a blur of doctor's appointments, baby showers, and me trying to make myself as small as possible. Karen's belly grew, and with it, her control over our lives. Then one crisp fall morning, my little brother was born. Despite everything, when I held him for the first time, I felt a surge of love. For a moment, I thought maybe things would get better. But Karen had other plans. "Careful, Megan," she'd say, snatching him away. "You might drop him, or he's sleeping now. Maybe you can see him later." There was always an excuse, always a reason why I couldn't spend time with my brother. Dad was too busy with work and the new baby to notice. Years passed. I threw myself into school, counting down the days until I could leave for college. My brother grew into a sweet, curious kid, but Karen made sure our interactions were limited. Finally, my senior year arrived. One night, I overheard Karen and Dad arguing. "She needs to learn responsibility," Karen insisted. "A job right out of high school would do her good." Dad's voice was firm. "No, Sarah wanted her to go to college. We set aside money for it. Megan's going." I'd never been so grateful for my dad standing up for me. When my acceptance letter came, I cried with relief. I was getting out. I was going to start my own life, away from Karen's manipulations. On moving day, Dad helped me pack the car. Karen and my brother stayed home. "I'm proud of you, Maggie," Dad said, hugging me goodbye. "Your mom would be too." As I drove away, watching my childhood home disappear in the rearview mirror, I felt a mix of sadness and hope. I was leaving behind the only home I'd known in the little brother I never really got to know, but I was also driving toward freedom, toward a future where I could be myself without Karen's shadow looming over me. College was like a breath of fresh air after years of suffocation. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make something of myself. Advertising became my passion, a world where creativity met strategy, and I could finally express myself freely. But even as I reveled in my newfound independence, there was always a nagging ache in my heart. My little brother, barely 6 when I left, was growing up without me. During rare visits home, I'd catch glimpses of the amazing kid he was becoming. "Megan, look what I drew," he'd exclaim, showing me his latest masterpiece. I'd ruffle his hair, cherishing these brief moments. "It's awesome, buddy. You're quite the artist." Karen would inevitably interrupt, whisking him away for some urgent task or another. The distance between us grew with each passing year. Graduation day arrived, a bittersweet triumph as I stood in my cap and gown, scanning the crowd. I realized Dad and Karen weren't there. Later, a terse text arrived. "Congratulations on graduating. Dad, Karen." It stung, but I refused to let it dampen my spirits. I had a future to build. Thanks to my internships and portfolio, I landed a job at a hip advertising agency in the city. Grandma, Mom's mom, and my guardian angel helped me secure a tiny but cozy apartment. "Your mother would be so proud," she said, pressing a check into my hand. "This is for rent. She always wanted you to have a good start." Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Work was challenging but rewarding. I made friends, went on dates, and slowly began to heal from the wounds of my past. For 3 years, I lived in relative peace, with only occasional awkward holiday visits to break the calm. Then out of the blue, my phone rang. Dad's name flashed on the screen. "Megan, it's Dad. I have some news. We've sold the house and bought a new place, bigger, more modern. I was hoping, well, would you help us move? It might be a good chance for us to reconnect." I was speechless. After years of distance, this sudden olive branch felt surreal. "Karen would be happy to see you too," he added, though I doubted that. "And your brother, Megan, he's 12 now. He asks about you all the time." I closed my eyes, weighing my options. Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect myself from more hurt. But another part, the part that still missed my family and longed for reconciliation, won out. "Okay," I said finally. "I'll come." "Great." Dad's relief was palpable. "I'll text you the address. See you this weekend." As I packed a bag for the weekend, my emotions swirled. Hope mingled with anxiety, excitement with dread. Whatever happened, this visit would change everything. I just didn't know if it would be for better or worse. I pulled up to the address, my jaw dropping at the sight. The house was enormous, all sleek lines and modern architecture. It looked nothing like the cozy home I grew up in. Taking a deep breath, I walked to the front door and rang the bell. Dad opened it, a hesitant smile on his face. "Maggie, you made it." "Hi, Dad," I said, stepping inside. Karen appeared behind him, her smile as plastic as ever. "Megan, how nice of you to come," she said, her tone suggesting anything but. I looked around, expecting to see my brother. "Where's?" Oh, he's staying with my parents for the weekend, Karen cut in smoothly. We thought it would be easier to move without him underfoot. The look in her eyes told me everything. This was deliberate. She made sure my brother wouldn't be here, denying me even this small chance to reconnect with him. Swallowing my disappointment and anger, I forced a smile. So where do you want me to start? For the next few hours, I threw myself into the work. I scrubbed floors, arranged furniture, and hung curtains. It was easier than trying to make conversation with Dad or enduring Karen's false pleasantries. As I was sorting through some boxes in what would be the study, I came across a pile of framed photos. My heart stopped as I recognized one particular frame. It was a portrait of Mom, the one that used to hang in my childhood bedroom. Her smile beamed at me from beneath a layer of dust. Clutching the photo, I walked into the living room where Dad and Karen were discussing paint colors. "Dad," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Why is Mom's picture in a pile of junk?" Dad's face fell, a mix of guilt and sadness crossing his features. He opened his mouth to speak, but Karen beat him to it. "Oh, that old thing," she said dismissively. "We decided those photos don't really fit with the new decor. They're a bit superfluous, don't you think?" Superfluous. The word hit me like a slap, my mother's memory reduced to an outdated decoration. Superfluous. I repeated, my voice dangerously low. "This is my mother, your wife," I added, looking at Dad. Dad at least had the decency to look ashamed. "Megan, we didn't mean." But I was already moving, gathering up every photo of Mom I could find. I found her old jewelry box, a few of her books. Without a word, I carried them out to my car, ignoring Karen's protests and Dad's weak attempts to explain. As I placed the last item in my trunk, I felt a storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Anger at Karen's callousness, disappointment in Dad's spinelessness, and a deep aching sadness for the mother I'd lost and the family that seemed beyond repair. I slammed the trunk shut, the sound echoing in the quiet street. For a moment, I considered getting in the car and driving away, leaving this mess behind once and for all. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of Mom, her voice in my head telling me to be strong. Maybe it was the thought of my little brother, who I still hadn't seen. Or maybe it was just sheer stubbornness, refusing to let Karen win. Whatever it was, I found myself walking back into the house. Karen was nowhere to be seen, probably hiding to avoid confrontation. Dad stood in the hallway, looking lost. So I went back to cleaning, trying not to think about Dad's betrayal. As I was about to leave, Dad caught my arm. "Megan, wait. There's something else." I turned, eyebrow raised. "What now?" He shifted uncomfortably. "We're having a housewarming party in a few days. We would really appreciate your help." Before I could respond, Karen swooped in, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Oh yes, Megan, we could really use your assistance. Perhaps you could handle the catering. I'll take care of the cleaning, invitations, and overall organization." I opened my mouth to refuse, but Dad jumped in. "Please, Mickey. All our relatives and friends will be there. We can't manage without you." His pleading eyes wore me down. Despite everything, a small part of me still wanted to make him happy. "Fine," I sighed. "I'll help with the food. I'll even pay for it myself." Karen's smile widened. "Wonderful. We're thinking of an Italian theme, to christen the new kitchen." I nodded, an idea forming. "Actually, I know the best Italian restaurant. I'll order from there, quality guaranteed." Karen's eyes narrowed slightly. "What's the name of this restaurant?" "Bella Nod," I replied, watching her carefully. She nodded, looking satisfied. "Sounds perfect. We'll leave it in your capable hands then." As I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Karen's sudden agreeableness was suspicious, but I pushed the thought aside, focusing on the task at hand. Over the next few days, I threw myself into planning the perfect menu. I called my friend Maria, owner of Bellet. "Megan, it's been too long," she answered cheerfully. "Hey Maria, I need a favor. My dad's having a housewarming party, and I'm in charge of food. Think you can help me out? For you, anything. What are you thinking?" We spent an hour crafting the perfect Italian spread. Antipasti platters, handmade pasta, tiramisu for dessert, the works. I spared no expense, wanting to prove I could handle this responsibility. After finalizing the order, I felt a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Despite everything, a small part of me hoped this party might be a turning point. Maybe, just maybe, we could start to heal our fractured family. The next week dragged by slowly. I kept myself busy with work, but my mind often wandered to the upcoming party. I checked and double-checked the order, making sure everything was perfect. The day before the housewarming party, my phone rang. It was Maria from Bellet. "Hey Megan, I'm a bit confused. Your stepmother called yesterday and asked to move the food delivery to today. Did the party date change?" My heart sank. "What? No, it's supposed to be tomorrow." Oh, Maria sounded worried. "Well, I wanted to double-check with you before making any changes." I thanked her, my mind racing. After hanging up, I immediately called Karen, my suspicions on high alert. "Hi, Karen. Just wanted to confirm the party details for tomorrow," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Oh yes, everything's set for tomorrow at 7 p.m., she replied smoothly. "We're looking forward to it." I thanked her and ended the call, my hands shaking with anger and disbelief. It was clear now. Karen had tried to change the delivery date behind my back. She wanted me to miss the party entirely. Taking a deep breath, I called Maria back. "Hey, it's me again. I need to cancel the order," I said, my voice tight. "Cancel? But Megan, are you sure? It's a lot of food, and it's all paid for." "I know. Keep the payment. Consider it a gift. Use the food for the restaurant if you can." After hanging up, I sat in stunned silence. The betrayal stung, but a part of me wasn't surprised. This was classic Karen, always finding new ways to push me out. The same evening, curiosity got the better of me. I opened my social media and saw my cousin was live streaming from the party. There it was, the housewarming in full swing, happening right now, a day early. I watched, a mix of hurt and anger building inside me, as Karen showed off the new house. She preened for the camera, pointing out design features and accepting compliments from guests. Suddenly, a voice off camera asked, "Where's Megan?" I thought she'd be here. Karen's face changed, a look of false concern replacing her smile. "Oh, you know Megan. She's always been a bit unsociable. Some mental health issues, poor dear. She said she couldn't make it." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Mental health issues? Unsociable? The lies flowed so easily from her lips. Karen quickly changed the subject, steering the conversation back to the house. "Now who's ready for some amazing Italian food? It should be here any minute." The guests cheered, and Karen beamed at the camera. Half an hour passed, and I could see the guests starting to look restless. Karen's smile became strained as she kept assuring everyone the food would arrive any minute now. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the live stream. Karen's perfectly crafted facade was crumbling before my eyes. Her smile had become a grimace as she dialed the restaurant's number, the speakerphone amplifying every word for the gathered guests. "Hello, Bellet. This is Karen. Where is our food order?" The response was clear and devastating. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that order was canceled earlier today by Megan. There won't be any delivery. Karen's face contorted with rage. What? That little? She shrieked, turning to my father. Call Megan right now. Dad, looking flustered, pulled out his phone. I watched, heart pounding, as he dialed my number. When I answered, his voice boomed through the speakerphone. Megan, how could you cancel the food order? You've ruined everything. Taking a deep breath, I replied calmly, Dad, why did you change the date of the housewarming? Why wasn't I invited? The room fell silent. Dad's face paled as he stammered. We, Karen said. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Guests exchanged meaningful glances, eyeing Karen and Dad with suspicion. Suddenly, Karen snatched the phone from Dad's hand. You ungrateful brat, she screeched. After everything we've done for you, you're trying to sabotage us, aren't you? I let her rant for a moment before speaking, my voice steady and clear. I think everyone can see now who really has mental health issues in this family, and it's not me. Karen's hysterical shouting filled the room, but I could see the damage was done. Guests were backing away, some already heading for the door. I'm done being your scapegoat, Karen, I said firmly. And Dad, I'm done watching you choose her over your own daughter. Goodbye. With trembling hands but unwavering resolve, I hung up the phone and terminated the live feed. The deception, the manipulation, it was all over and visible to everybody. I disregarded the flurry of calls and texts from Dad and other family members in the days that followed. I needed time to think, to recover. Dad arrived at my residence a week later. His eyes were red-rimmed, and he appeared gaunt. He said, Megan, I'm so sorry first. I have been blind. I lost sight of what truly mattered because I let Karen to take charge of everything. Give me a chance to put things right, please. Something in his look made me want to smash the door in his face, but I refrained. Dad, it's not that easy. You left me behind. You overlooked me. He replied, I know, in a voice that broke. However, I'd like to change. I'll do better, I swear. Maggie, please. Carefully and slowly, we started to mend our friendship. Dad began making frequent phone calls, and we got together once a week for coffee. Sometimes Dad even brought my younger brother along, out of Karen's prying eyes. Regarding Karen, I had heard rumors that she had become somewhat of a family outcast. She withdrew into a shell of resentment once her falsehoods were exposed. After several months, life found a new rhythm. I poured myself into my work and worked my way up the advertising agency's ranks. Fueled by the emotional anguish I had experienced, my creativity blossomed. I have no idea what my family's future holds. Healing takes time, and the scars are deep. But I feel hopeful for the first time in years. I'm following my passions, living life on my terms, and gradually but surely letting love return to my heart. I can just hear Mom saying, You're stronger than you know, Maggie, as I gaze out my apartment window at the city lights. And what do you know? She was correct. As the eldest of two daughters, my name is Ashley. I was the independent one, the serious one, as far as I can remember. Lily, my sister, was the exact opposite. Our home was always noisy while I was growing up. Lily's giggles, the adoring words of Mom and Dad, and the incessant hum of the newest pop tunes. Me, I like to spend my time in peaceful places, reading or working on my schoolwork. Holidays and birthdays served as a sharp reminder of Lily and my differences. I would carefully save away the money I got, while she would go through her gifts and exclaim with joy at the newest, stylish clothing or technology. Ratch, what are you saving for now? With a tinge of pride in his words that never quite made it to his eyes, Dad would inquire. I would respond, a laptop for studying. The computers in the library are constantly full. I could notice the gap even though he would not. Why I didn't desire the things other girls my age had was never fully understood by them. Lily, however, was a tornado of shifting desires and fashions. Have you seen the new iPhone, Mom? Everybody has one at school. I must have it. She would have it instantly, without having to ask any questions or save anything. I can still clearly recall the day I purchased my laptop. I had spent months saving money and looking into the ideal model for my requirements. I was really proud of myself when I got it home. Observe, I received it at last. At dinner, I made the announcement. From her plate, Mom looked up. That's good, sweetie. Tell us about your mall day, Lily. Suddenly, the topic of discussion changed. My accomplishment was overshadowed by Lily's lengthy account of her most recent buying binge. I knew they loved me in their own way, so it wasn't that they didn't love me. However, I was a far-off planet, silently circling on my own course, while Lily was the sun in our family solar system. The disparities simply become more noticeable as we aged. I kept to my comfy jeans and sensible ponytail, while Lily dabbled with the newest fashions and outrageous hairstyles. The library turned to become my second home, a peaceful haven where I could concentrate on my objectives undisturbed. With the same zeal I had displayed throughout high school, I put myself into applications when it came time for college. I studied for admission examinations, looked into scholarships, and spent many nights polishing my essays. One of my proudest days in life was the day I got my admission letter and full scholarship. I waved the note as I rushed into the kitchen. Dad, Mom, I entered, all aboard. While assisting Lily with her cosmetics, Mom glanced up. Oh, that's good, my love. Hold steady, Lily. I'm working on perfecting this eyeliner. Dad had a look at his newspaper. Well done, Ashley. We didn't anticipate anything less. I was accustomed to their indifferent response, but it still hurt. Holding the letter close to my chest, I withdrew to my room. This was my opportunity to show myself and go out. Lily, on the other hand, barely made it through high school. I thought our parents would finally be disappointed when she handed home her lousy report card. Rather, they came together to support her. Mom stroked Lily's hair and murmured, "Oh, sweetie, don't worry about it. You have so many other talents. College isn't for everyone." Dad gave a nod of approval. "Yes, princess, you will discover your way." I was shocked to hear that. Do you mean me? She nearly made it. My mother gave me a stern look. Don't be mean, Ashley. Your sister is gifted in different ways. I recoiled once again and bit my tongue. It was obvious that Lily would always be the favorite, regardless of what I accomplished. College was a welcome change. I was surrounded by individuals who respected ambition and hard effort for the first time. Determining to take use of this chance, I immersed myself into my studies. I received a call from home one day while I was a sophomore. Lily was speaking, her enthusiasm palpable. "You know what, Ratch? I'm considering enrolling in some beauty classes. Parents believe it's a fantastic concept." Although I knew she wouldn't be interested, I wanted to tell her about the exciting research project I was working on and the summer position I had secured. I couldn't help but feel a mixture of resolve and aggravation as I hung up. I was determined to make it matter that I was on my own road. The years passed quickly. I graduated with honors, but Lily kept switching between beauty classes and never really finished anything. Before my diploma's ink dried, I was hired by a renowned corporation. The day I moved into my own apartment was bittersweet. As I unpacked my meager belongings, I thought about how different my life was from Lily's. She was still living at home, being pampered by our parents, but I was standing on my own 2 feet, ready to take on the world. My first few months at work were a whirlwind. I worked longer hours than anyone else, determined to prove myself. My dedication didn't go unnoticed. Within a year, I was promoted to team leader. I called home to share the news. Mom answered, "Oh, Ashley, that's nice, but guess what? Lily's met the most wonderful boy. He comes from such a good family. We're all so excited." As she rattled on about Lily's new boyfriend, my promotion faded into the background. I hung up, feeling deflated but more determined than ever. If my family couldn't appreciate my achievements, I'd just have to achieve even more. I threw myself into my work like a woman possessed. Days blurred into nights. Weekends became just another opportunity to get ahead. My dedication paid off. I got another promotion, then another. Before I knew it, I was head of the department, the youngest in the company's history. Mr. Thompson, the owner, called me into his office one day. "Ashley, your work has been exceptional. We've never had someone rise through the ranks so quickly." I beamed with pride. "Thank you, sir. I love what I do." He smiled. "It shows. That's why I want to offer you something special. We have a program for our top employees, a chance to buy an apartment at a significant discount. You've more than earned it." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork and planning. When I finally got the keys, I felt like I was walking on air. I decided to throw a housewarming party, a chance to celebrate my success with the people who mattered most. I didn't have much furniture yet, so I bought some inexpensive plastic tables and chairs. I arranged everything carefully, making sure the disposable tableware matched the decor. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. The day of the party arrived. My colleagues showed up first, bearing gifts and warm congratulations. Then my family arrived. Mom, Dad, and Lily swept in like a whirlwind. I noticed Lily's eyes darting around, taking in the modest furnishings with a barely concealed smirk. As the evening wore on, I noticed a pattern. Every time one of my colleagues tried to congratulate me or mention my accomplishments, my parents would swiftly change the subject to Lily. "Oh, that reminds me," Mom would say, cutting off my coworker mid-sentence. "Did Ashley tell you about Lily's latest modeling gig? She's just so photogenic." Dad would chime in, "Yes, our Lily was born for the spotlight. Such natural talent." I saw the confused and slightly horrified looks on my colleagues' faces. I wanted to sink into the floor. Lily, for her part, basked in the attention. "Oh, Mom, stop it," she'd say with a giggle, clearly loving every moment. Finally, mercifully, my family left. As soon as the door closed behind them, my coworker Sarah turned to me, her eyes wide. "Ashley, what the hell was that?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Oh, that's just how they are." Another colleague, Mark, shook his head. "No, Ashley, that's not normal. Are you okay? Do you need help?" I felt a lump forming in my throat. Their concern was touching, but also embarrassing. "Guys, really, it's fine. I'm used to it. Who wants another drink?" As I busied myself in the kitchen, I could hear them whispering, their concern palpable. I blinked back tears, determined not to let them see how much my family's behavior had affected me. After the housewarming fiasco, I threw myself back into work with renewed vigor. Months flew by, and slowly but surely, I transformed my apartment into a space that truly felt like home. Every piece of furniture, every splash of color on the walls, was a testament to my hard work and independence. One sunny Saturday, I decided to treat myself to something I'd been eyeing for a while, a car. Nothing flashy, Just a reliable sedan that would get me from point A to point B. As I drove it home, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was mine, bought with my own money, a symbol of my success. I hadn't planned on telling my family, but news travels fast. The phone rang that evening, and Lily's voice chirped through the speaker. "Ratch, I heard you bought a car." "That's nice," she said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. "You know, you're really doing this the hard way. All this working and saving, it's so unnecessary." I felt my hackles rise. "What do you mean?" "Well, the main task of a woman is to get married, probably silly. Find a man who'll support you and give you everything you need. Why work yourself to the bone when you could have it all handed to you?" I was speechless for a moment. Was she serious? "Lily, that's not. I mean, I want to earn things for myself. I'm proud of what I've accomplished." She laughed, a tinkling sound that grated on my nerves. "Oh, Ratch, always the difficult one. Well, you'll see. I'll show you how it's done." Before I could respond, she had hung up. I stared at the phone, a mix of anger and disbelief swirling in my gut. How could we see the world so differently? A few months later, I got my answer. Lily called, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Ashley, you'll never guess what happened. I'm getting married. His name is Robert. He's absolutely loaded, Ratch. His parents are paying for the whole wedding. It's going to be gorgeous." As she rattled off details about dresses, flowers, and guest lists, I felt a strange hollowness in my chest. This was what she had been working towards. I realized this was her version of success. The day of the wedding arrived all too soon. I stood in the grand hall, feeling out of place among the glittering guests. Lily was radiant in her designer gown, and our parents couldn't stop gushing. I sipped my champagne, trying to quell the bitterness rising in my throat. Had they ever looked at me with such pride? Had they ever been this happy for my accomplishments? As the evening wore on, I felt more and more like an outsider. Lily was in her element, charming guests and basking in the attention. Our parents floated about, proudly introducing themselves as the parents of the bride. As I drove home in my modest car to my modest apartment that I'd worked so hard for, I couldn't help but wonder, had I made the right choices? Was Lily right? Had I chosen the harder path? But then I thought about my job, my achievements, the sense of pride I felt every time I accomplished something on my own. No, I decided my path might be harder, but it was mine, and that made all the difference. After Lil's wedding, life settled into a new rhythm. Work kept me busy, but my mother's frequent calls became an unwelcome interruption. Every conversation was the same. "Ashley, darling," Mom would start, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You'll never believe what Lily's been up to." I braced myself as she launched into another tale of Lily's fabulous new life. She's been invited to the most exclusive gatherings. Can you believe it? Our Lily rubbing elbows with high society. One day, after a particularly trying call, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Mom, that's great for Lily, but don't you want to know what's going on in my life?" There was a pause. "Oh, honey," she said, her tone patronizing. "Of course we care, but you really should learn from your sister. Be more beautiful. Get things easily. Why work all day for pennies when you could have it all?" A few weeks later, an invitation arrived. Lily and Robert were having a housewarming party for their new luxury apartment, a gift from his parents, of course. The night of the party, I stood outside their building, feeling small. I smoothed down my simple dress and took a deep breath before heading in. The apartment was stunning. Every surface gleamed, and every piece of furniture looked like it cost more than my yearly salary. My parents were already there, cooing over every detail. I tried to blend into the background, but Lily spotted me. She sauntered over, champagne flute in hand. "Ashley, so glad you could make it," she said, her eyes scanning my outfit critically. "I hope you're taking notes. This is how a housewarming should be done. None of that plastic furniture and disposable dish nonsense like at your place." I felt my cheeks burn. "Lily, that's..." But she was already moving on, leaving me with the sting of her words. The weeks that followed were a parade of Lily's extravagance. She seemed to buy everything in sight, always the most expensive option. Then came the car. I was leaving work one evening when a sleek sports car pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing Lily's smug face. "Look, just a little gift from Robert. Thought I'd take it for a spin." I glanced at my reliable but unremarkable sedan. "It's very nice, Lily." She followed my gaze and laughed. "Oh, Ashley, always settling for less. You'll always be working for others while I live the good life." 2 years flew by in a blur of spreadsheets, meetings, and promotions. While I climbed the corporate ladder, Lily seemed content to climb from one shopping spree to the next. Our paths couldn't have been more different, but I'd made my peace with it. Or so I thought. It was a regular Tuesday when my world tilted on its axis. Mom called, her voice uncharacteristically shaky. "Ashley, it's Lily. She's back home. Robert left her. He said she was too shallow, too focused on spending his money. He called her stupid. Can you believe it? He had her sign a prenup, so she's got nothing." I felt a mix of emotions, shock, concern, and if I'm being honest, a tiny flicker of vindication. I squashed it down, immediately ashamed of myself. "I'm coming over," I said, already grabbing my keys. When I arrived at my parents' house, it was like walking into a war zone. I could hear Lily's screams from the driveway. Inside, it was worse. Lily was in the living room, mascara streaking down her face, her designer clothes torn. She was throwing anything she could get her hands on: vases, picture frames, cushions. "He can't do this to me," she shrieked. "I'm Lily. I'm beautiful. I'm perfect." Mom and Dad fluttered around her, trying to calm her down. "Sweetie, please," Mom pleaded. "We'll figure this out. Dad will buy you a new dress, won't you, dear?" Dad nodded frantically. "Of course, princess. Anything you want." I stood there watching this scene unfold, feeling like I was in some bizarre alternate reality. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't how life was supposed to work, was it? As the days passed, Lily's tantrums didn't subside. She'd cry for hours, then scream, then demand expensive gifts to make herself feel better. Our parents, ever eager to please their favorite, complied with every request. One evening, after a particularly bad episode, I couldn't hold my tongue anymore. "Maybe," I said cautiously, "Lily should consider getting a job. It might help her appreciate the value of money and give her something to focus on." The room went dead silent, then all hell broke loose. Lily's face contorted in rage. "A job? Like you, slaving away day after day like some peasant." She burst into tears and ran upstairs, slamming her door so hard the house shook. Before I could process what had happened, Mom and Dad rounded on me. "How dare you?" Mom hissed. "Your sister is going through a terrible time, and you suggest she lower herself to your level." But I didn't mean. I tried to explain, but they weren't listening. "Get out," Dad said, his voice cold. "Get out of this house right now." Mom pointed to the door. "Out, and don't come back until you can be supportive of your sister." In a daze, I grabbed my purse and left. As I walked into my apartment, my sanctuary, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness at being rejected by my family, anger at their blindness to Lily's faults, and oddly, a sense of relief. For the first time, I saw clearly how toxic my family dynamic had been all these years. Life has a funny way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Just days after the blowout with my family, I received news that left me speechless. I'd won a company contest. The prize, a 4-month around-the-world cruise. In a moment of weakness, or perhaps hope, I called my parents. Maybe this good news would bridge the gap between us. Mom, Dad, you won't believe it. I won a cruise around the world. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then my mother's cold voice cut through. Ashley, how can you be so selfish? Your sister is going through a terrible time, and you're bragging about vacations. I felt like I'd been slapped. I'm not bragging. I just thought. Mom interrupted. If you had any decency, you'd give that ticket to Lily. She needs a change of scenery. You can stay home and work like you always do. Something snapped inside me. Years of pent-up frustration came pouring out. No, I said firmly. I won this trip. I earned it. I'm not giving it up because Lily made poor life choices. I'm going. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. I packed my bags, put my affairs in order, and on the day of departure, I turned off my phone. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. The cruise was everything I dreamed of and more. I watched sunsets in the Mediterranean, explored ancient ruins in Greece, and marveled at the bustling streets of Hong Kong. For 4 glorious months, I was just Ashley, not the responsible older sister, not the family disappointment, just me. But all good things must come to an end. As the ship docked back home, reality came crashing back. I turned on my phone, bracing myself for the barrage of messages. Surprisingly, there were only a few missed calls from my parents. Feeling lighter than I had in years, I headed home. But as I approached my apartment door, I heard noises inside. My heart raced. Has someone broken in? I cautiously opened the door, only to find myself face to face with Lily. She was sprawled on my couch, surrounded by shopping bags and empty takeout containers. Lily, I gasped. What are you doing here? She looked up, barely fazed by my sudden appearance. Oh, you're back. Finally. I stood there, key still in hand, trying to process the scene before me. How did you get in here? Lily rolled her eyes. Don't be dense, Ashley. I used the spare keys you gave Mom and Dad. I needed a change of scenery. Everything at home reminded me of you. I stood there, staring at Lily, trying to process everything. This was too much. I needed air. I'm going to the store, I muttered, grabbing my car keys and heading for the door. But when I reached the parking lot, my car was nowhere to be seen. Panic rising, I called my parents. Mom, I demanded, cutting to the chase. Where's my car? There was a pause, then Dad's voice came on the line. We sold it. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. You what? Lily needed cheering up, Mom explained, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. We used the money to take her shopping, to the spa. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. That was my car. You had no right. Now, Ashley, Dad's stern voice cut in. We're family. What's yours is ours. Don't be so selfish. Something inside me snapped. Years of pent-up frustration, resentment and anger came pouring out. Selfish? You steal my car, invade my home, and I'm selfish. I want my money back now. Their response was immediate and harsh. They called me heartless, ungrateful, a disappointment. The words stung, but for the first time, they didn't break me. I hung up and marched back to my apartment. Lily was still there, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. Get out, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Lily looked up, shocked. What? Get out. Now. She tried to argue, to manipulate me like she always had, but I stood firm. For once in my life, I put myself first. I hired a lawyer the next day and filed a lawsuit against my parents for the car's worth. They were indignant and threatened to cut me off against their will and disown me, but I refused to back down. Court heard the matter. It was a torturous procedure that exposed years of financial and emotional torture for the scrutiny of outsiders. But justice won out in the end. The court gave me a favorable ruling. In order to pay me back, my parents had to sell their home. While they were moving into a tiny apartment, they continued to portray me as the bad guy who had destroyed their life. However, I was unaffected by their statements for once. I felt as though a burden had been lifted as I drove my new vehicle home from the showroom. I felt genuinely free for the first time in my life, free from manipulation, free from expectations, and free to be who I am. I stopped communicating with my relatives. Although it was a difficult choice, it was essential. The first few months were challenging. There were times when I felt alone and doubtful. But gradually, I started to create a life that I wanted. I put all of my effort into my work and advanced through the ranks fast. I met new people who valued me for who I was rather than what I could accomplish for them. I took trips, picked up new abilities, and discovered enjoyable pastimes. Above all, I discovered how to love and value myself, my power, and my perseverance. I can't help but grin now as I sit in my office and gaze out over the city. It wasn't an easy journey, but it was mine. I wouldn't have it any other way. I constructed my life piece by piece, choice by choice.